Right now in Rockville, Maryland, and several cities, in fact, across the world, protests against Tesla over Elon Musk's role in dismantling federal programs. The protests are part of the Tesla Takedown campaign amid calls to boycott Musk's signature brand. And joining me now is Texas Congressman Greg Casar. He is a member of the House Oversight Committee and Subcommittee on Delivering Government Efficiency and the Progressive Caucus Chair. Congressman, good to have you. So you have fiercely condemned Elon Musk's efforts to dismantle government programs and cut the benefits out there for Americans. And his foray into government is not your first exposure to Musk. Your Austin, Texas district includes his largest Tesla factory. So I'm curious your response to these protests, as well as the vandalism at Tesla dealerships across the country.
Well, look, we don't support vandalism, and there's no Democrats that support that kind of behavior. But what we do support is people expressing their First Amendment rights. And we all are deeply concerned. The richest man on earth is firing veterans, taking their salaries and trying to hand it out in the form of tax breaks to his billionaire buddies. Elon Musk is talking about how Social Security, in his words, is a, quote, Ponzi scheme, and he wants to eliminate billions of dollars from Social Security, deny seniors their benefits by calling them fraudsters, and channeling money to himself in the form of government contracts. So we need to be really clear with folks that what you're feeling right now is an unholy alliance between corporate greed and corrupt government. And the Democratic Party's message, their number one message, should be breaking that unholy alliance, so that we have representative government again, and so that government can take care of the everyday person, not have an economy rigged for Elon Musk.
I'm curious because I understand you just wrapped up a town hall in a very red district in your state, and last week you had 20,000 people show up for your Arizona rally with Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on their Fighting Oligarchy tour. That rally's message: the government has been taken hostage by billionaires, and the only way to take it back is by unifying the working class. What concerns did you hear from voters today, and did your populist message resonate with them?
Yeah, folks, you may see him in the back of a car just leaving a town hall in Dripping Springs, Texas, in Congressman Chip Roy's district. So I was invited. Congressman Chip Roy was invited. Dripping Springs is population about 8,500 people, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people showed up. Democrats, independents, conservatives alike. They filled up the parking lot. I could not believe this. I mean, we're here where they show livestock. It's a livestock show hall, and we packed the hall standing room only. And whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, working people cannot support somebody buying politicians, making it so that those politicians don't even come to town hall to answer questions, and basically stealing people's Social Security, their Medicare and Medicaid in order to give it out in tax breaks to billionaires. So I think if we stick to that message and channel this energy we're seeing at rallies and town halls all across the country, we can actually stop some of this madness, not have to wait until next election year, but actually stop some of this madness now by turning up the pressure on Republicans and just getting 3 Republicans to stop these votes for destroying Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and veterans' jobs.
Congressman, was I seeing the right thing there? Was that a cutout of Congressman Chip Roy at the table in his absence, I presume?
That's right. You know, I showed up. I was invited. I didn't know if Chip would be there or not, and I was about to take a seat there at the table, and there was a cardboard cutout of him. And look, I know Congressman Roy, and we talk pretty frequently, and I'm just so appalled by the fact that over 80% of Republican voters are against slashing Medicaid in order to pay for billionaire tax cuts. But Congressman Roy and 100% of House Republicans are voting against the vast majority of their constituents. I saw on the segment right before mine that we're talking about arrests of students because they write op-eds or have a political opinion. You know, we should be First Amendment supporters, and I wish that Congressman Roy would stand up for the First Amendment, and I believe that Democrats and progressives should stand up for the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, regardless of whether somebody has a left-wing view or a right-wing view. We shouldn't be having people arrested by the government for their political views. These are the kinds of messages that resonate in Dripping Springs, Texas, with Congressman Roy's own voters. So I'm the chairman of the Progressive Caucus. I might have some disagreements on this social issue or that one with some of the hundreds of people here at the Livestock Show Hall. But at the core of our message is getting rid of corruption in government and getting rid of corruption in the economy. And I think we can all agree on that.
Can I just ask how people reacted to you? Do they appreciate you being there and answering your questions? I do have another question to get to, so just real quickly on that one.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, House Speaker Mike Johnson told Republicans to not host town halls. I mean, it's crazy. So Republicans aren't showing up as the Progressive Caucus were launching the Democrats Show Up campaign, and people appreciate it. Just us showing up. Our title isn't congressman. It's actually representative, and we need to get back to a representative form of government.
Good point. Part of DOGE efforts include in the intended cuts at NPR and PBS. And then to that end, the Oversight Committee held that hearing with heads of those media outlets. Here are some questions that you raised. Take a listen.
Mr. Gonzalez, you wrote the proposal to defund NPR, PBS, and public broadcasting for Project 2025. Can you answer a few questions for me? How many millions of dollars a month do taxpayers spend for Daniel Tiger to play golf?
I have no idea.
The answer is none.
Okay.
To your knowledge, has Miss Piggy ever been caught trying to funnel billions of dollars in government contracts to herself and to her companies?
That's a silly question.
Well, the answer is no.
Tell us a little bit about whom you were grilling there and what might DOGE cuts do to programs like Sesame Street.
The author of the Project 2025 plans to defund NPR and PBS didn't want to talk about the fact that Donald Trump is the one that spent $10 million of taxpayer money to play golf at the beginning of his administration. That Elon Musk, not Miss Piggy, has been caught funneling billions of dollars in government contracts to himself. So if we want to talk about government efficiency, we shouldn't be talking about Big Bird. We should be taking a look at Big Pharma and Big Tech. The Republican members of Congress want to pick a scapegoat. It's Elmo or it's immigrants because they don't want us paying attention to their big corporate donors.
Okay. Texas Representative Greg Casar, come see me again. Thank you so much, and especially right after that town hall you had.